Goldschmidt hits it out to left, and this will do it. And he does it in grand style. It's a grand slammer. A walk-off grand slam. Goldie, the walk-off grand slam.
That's last night. Cardinals win it in 10. Paul Goldschmidt with the walk-off grand slam. We're going to talk some Cardinals baseball with Katie Wu, Cardinals beat writer at The Athletic. Katie, we always appreciate your time, especially during the middle of the season. How you doing today?
Hey, guys. How are you? And what a great call by Cardinals broadcaster Dan McLaughlin on that walk-off grand slam. I swear, no matter what the occasion is, Danny Mac always seems to bring it for those Cardinals fans.
Yeah, he answered the bell, that's for sure. And this team has two. I think I counted in the last 4 days, Katie. I might be off by one or two. 15 transactions and a 4-0 record with the remaking of the team because of injuries and guys not playing up to the level that was expected. So it's a lot to keep up with. And you have a piece in The Athletic today that's trying to keep fans up with all the comings and the goings, but it's like pay attention or you might miss one, right?
No, that's how I feel. I have to pay attention or I might miss another move. There's definitely been a considerable amount of roster churn for the Cardinals, and it's not necessarily what you want, obviously, with Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson going on the IL, Steven Matz going on the IL. But, I'm not saying that you should look for any positive in injury. Obviously, you hope all three players can return soon. But the silver lining in the situation has been that the depth that the Cardinals needed to rely on from their young and up-and-coming prospects has been there. And these kids have gone out there and been able to deliver and answer the bell appropriately in their own regard, and that's been cool to see from the Cardinals' perspective.
Yeah, and it's kind of rare, I guess, to have this organizational depth tested so early, and it's such a concentrated period of time. But you bring up Ivan Herrera got called up, I think, yesterday. He's backing up Kanizer, while Yadier Molina tends to a family issue in Puerto Rico. Nolan Gorman is up at second base. Well, they've got Edman at shortstop, and DeYoung moved down was optioned down. These guys are, and I know Liberator got up and made his debut, and he's probably going to pitch against Milwaukee. So, you don't bring these guys up just to sit and watch. It's not like a September call up. Like they're up here to perform, and they're thrown right into the fire.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because it is a little early to test the depth, as you'd say, but the Cardinals have always kind of emphasized 2022 as their prime window of contention, and one of their reasonings in doing so was because they figured their top prospects would be ready for Major League action at some point in this season. Now, of course, when you think of top prospects, you think of Nolan Gorman, you think of Matthew Liberatore, but you also think of Brendan Donovan and Juan Yepez, two guys that have flown relatively under the radar in the overall prospect rankings, but were certainly high in the Cardinals system. And they've come in and they were called up upon necessity, and they have given absolutely no inkling on being sent back down to Memphis. These are two guys that are versatile in their defense, especially Brendan Donovan, who can play what I believe almost every single position. I even think he's the Cardinals' emergency catcher. And Juan Yepez, who has cemented himself as an offensive threat in the middle of the order. No matter where you look, it seems like the Cardinals have significant depth. Their minor league guys have shown up and have been contributing incredibly to this ball club. And this is something that we haven't been able to see from the Cardinals roster in the last couple of seasons, is they didn't have this kind of depth. So for me, that's been the biggest overall test for this team early on, is how have their guys in the wings responded, and they've responded quite well, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Katie, obviously Goldschmidt hit the walk-off grand slam last night. Great, big moment for him and the Cardinals as they continue to win 4 games in a row, like Phil said. Luckily, you had the Pirates, a 3-game series, so that always helps to get the winning momentum back rolling. But with Goldschmidt, it feels like his time in St. Louis hasn't lived up to expectations. When he came over to the Cardinals, it felt like this was going to be a grand slam hit, out of the ballpark for an addition to the Cards. Do you think that this is the year that he finally, makes that mark to where it was worth bringing him to St. Louis?
I actually think it's always been worth it. I think that just Paul Goldschmidt, his overall demeanor, very quiet, is never going to really talk about himself or do anything showboaty. I thought Cardinals fans were lucky to get a fist pump as he was running first base after a walk-off grand slam, right? I feel like this is his overall demeanor. But I think this is the year that he perhaps takes it to another level. Paul Goldschmidt's always been kind of an offensive staple, and I think he does slide under the radar because he's not very showboaty, and that's fine. That's not his personality at all, so why pretend to be something otherwise? But what he's been doing atop this Cardinals batting order, I mean, he's notoriously a slow starter, so I feel like we always grant Paul Goldschmidt a couple of weeks early in the season to get settled. And he's definitely settled now. I think in April we talked about Nolan Arenado being a potential MVP candidate, and now looks like his teammate is evidently right on his tail. But what Paul Goldschmidt's doing on top of that Cardinals lineup, is hitting consistently. He's absolutely raking off of left-handers. He's getting on base. He's gone on base almost a month straight now in consecutive games. I think this is exactly what Paul Goldschmidt has been doing for the club. I think it just also goes a little bit underrated when you have a little bit more star power and a little bit more of guys that promote themselves a little more than Goldschmidt does. But I think since he's been a Cardinal, he's been nothing but a perfect fit for this organization.
Now, something I don't think any of us saw starting this season is something we've gotten to see in the last couple of weeks. Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina making their debuts on the mound due to blowouts, Cardinal victories. How great has it been to get to see two Cardinal legends, have that moment in their career? And I know it's probably a no to 0.001% chance of a yes, but can we get Wainwright behind the plate? Can we get him to make his catching debut?
I think Wainwright is too busy campaigning for one more at bat, which is a lot more likely, I would say, than him behind the plate. But no, it has been fun for these guys. They've earned it. I mean, both of them Hall of Fame careers, coming back, and they've said 2022 is going to be their last season. I know it's hard to believe because they've been such staples in the game for what feels like forever. But it's fun. Baseball is supposed to be fun, right? And we get so caught up in the competition and the seriousness of it, that it was fun in both occasions to just see two guys ending their careers having fun on the mound together. I know that after Albert pitched, Yadi said he could do much better. However, if you look at the lines, they're pretty identical. So I'm sure they'll banter over that pretty consistently. But overall, I think it's just been really fun to see of course, obviously, both Albert and Yadi are very committed and very competitive and want to win one more championship in St. Louis. Cardinals haven't won a championship since 2011 when Albert left for Anaheim. They obviously want to change that, but they're going about their business this year in a way where it's still very serious, but also recognizing their roles have changed. I mean, Albert Pujols is here to mentor so many of the young up-and-coming hitters. They joke all the time that Juan Yepez never leaves his side. He's out here reaching out to even guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado. Anyone that wants to listen to Albert, he's available and talking to. Yadi's over there commanding the pitching staff. He's had a lot of young guys that have had to rely on him, and that's something that he's really thrived in throughout his career is taking control of big moments for young guys and saying, hey, just put your trust in me. That's what I'm here for. So it's nice to see two what are considered legends in the greater St. Louis area also get to have a little bit of fun early on in the season, too.
Katie Wu is our guest. She covers the St. Louis Cardinals for The Athletic, which is definitely worth your subscription. Katie, let's talk some pitching here because I saw Alex Reyes is undergoing shoulder surgery, so he might be out for the rest of the year. Maybe you get him back in the pennant race. Who knows? But it's shaky. Flaherty's still working his way back. Matz goes on the disabled list with a shoulder impingement. Hudson's been shaky up and down. It looks like he's been skipped over for this time through the rotation. So, Wainwright's pitching well. Miles Michaelis is pitching really well. And I want to ask about Jordan Hicks. Because, he's got the best arm, one of the best arms in all of baseball. And they're bringing him along now as a starting pitcher kind of slowly, like he's been held to about 85, 84 pitches the last month or so. Do you think that they're going to be able to stretch him out a little bit anytime soon to cover some of these innings?
That's certainly their hope. Jordan Hicks is stretched out from a pitch count perspective. So he's on a full throttle. There's no kind of hesitance when it comes to regarding or limiting his pitches like it was in early April and May. But you'd certainly like to see a little bit more length from Jordan. Obviously, when you're throwing 82 pitches and you can only notch 4 2/3 innings, that's not going to 4 innings, I should say, that's not going to cut it. The Cardinals would certainly like to see a little bit more length. They do have a bit of a fallback option with a random off day tomorrow. But their intention, of course, is that Jordan Hicks can last, into the 5th or potentially 6th inning now that he's at his pitch count maximum. So it's been an interesting experiment for Jordan Hicks, who clearly has the talent, clearly has the arsenal. His arsenal is regarded as one of the top in baseball. You see the high velocity that he's even tempered a bit. You see the changeup that registers at 92 miles per hour, right? The stuff is all there. The potential is all there, and now it's about execution. Cardinals were patient over the first 6 months of the season as they grew him out to become a traditional starter. Now he's there. Now he has the workload done. The organization feels like he's fully stretched out. So it's on Jordan to execute, and we should see that tonight against Kevin Gausman and the Blue Jays.
Yeah, so you got Liberatore up too, and I know he had to stay up after I think Matz went on the disabled list. So it's pressure to put on a rookie, and obviously with Reyes out maybe for the rest of the year, and they might have known this was going to be the case, when he wasn't able really to ramp up at all in spring training. What's the timetable for Jack Flaherty? Because it feels really important for St. Louis if they've got a chance at winning this division, that Jack Flaherty, a healthy, successful Jack Flaherty, has to be part of the plan.
Oh, no doubt. And Jack Flaherty is 100% part of that plan, which is why the Cardinals are being so cognizant and so careful in stretching him out in his own rehab process. The organization has stressed over and over, patience is going to be required for Jack, but for good reason. When you have a talent like Jack Flaherty, who's not only one of the more dynamic pitchers on the team, but in my opinion, one of the more dynamic pitchers in the league, and you think about what he's been through over the last 18 months, and that's not even counting the shortened 2020 season, you want to proceed with caution to make sure you're setting him up for success for the future. There's no point in rushing Jack Flaherty back to have him if it's just going to hinder his progress and hurt him in the long run. So the Cardinals are being very careful. They're taking it very slow with their ace. He's thrown a few bullpens. He started out in San Francisco early in May. He's progressed through Busch Stadium, through 2 on their last road trip, 1 in New York, 1 in Pittsburgh, but he has not been cleared to face live hitters. The organization has stressed it's going to be a gradual process. I talked to Jack a couple of weeks ago, and he said this year it's a lot more different because he feels like he's in a good mental spot. He feels like he knows what's expected of him, and there's a timeline that he feels he can work on that he feels is going to give them the best chance in giving a longevity version of Jack Flaherty back, which is what the Cardinals will need in the second half if they do want to take down the Brewers atop the NL Central. So I know Cardinals fans are so anxious to get Jack back. I know the team is too, but patience will be required over the next month or so as the team continues to evaluate his rehab process.
Mm-hmm. And Katie, your point is taken greatly that you do have to be patient because you can't rush these things along, but we are a fourth of the way through the season, 3 weeks away from Flag Day when, starting to look at standings kind of can actually mean something. That's where you get closer to your halfway point and 2 games back from the Brewers. But while they're waiting, how close do they need to keep it to really have a chance at that second half push and have a chance to win the division? Do they have to keep it within 2, keep it within 6? What's the range that you're going to be when you look at the standings on Flag Day here in 3 weeks, and you'll feel good and comfortable about where the Cardinals are standing?
Well, it's interesting because their roles in the standings could easily flip-flop after a 4-game set this weekend against Milwaukee at Busch Stadium. But I've always, even on opening day, have thought that the Brewers and the Cardinals will go back and forth atop the division. I think what you're seeing now, a 2-3 game stretch between the two, is probably what we're going to see all the way down until September, and then things will get dicey. If we know one thing about the St. Louis Cardinals is that they are by all means, a September team. They usually save their most dramatic moments for their most dire times. So I would expect the Cardinals and the Brewers to be going back and forth, staying within striking distance of each other, 2, 3, 4 games, flip-flopping between first and second in the division. And then I think September will be really interesting on who runs away with it. I think it'll be a matter of just who gets hot at the right time. Both teams really talented. Both teams, when assuming the Cardinals get a healthy Jack Flaherty back, will have 2 pretty lethal pitching staffs. And that's what makes the baseball season so interesting is you spend 5 months building up for kind of the grand crescendo in September, and it'll be interesting to see how the Cardinals and Brewers respond to that.
All right, Katie, we'll wrap up with this really quickly. You're a California native living in St. Louis, so how many times have you been to Ted Drew's yet?
Not yet this summer. Well, I guess it's still spring, but in my mind it's summer. I will be going very soon. I usually save it for a day where it's just brutally hot and I feel like I need to. The weather has mostly behaved itself in St. Louis, but now that I said that, I feel like I probably just jinxed it. But last year I went more times than I care to admit on air.
It's okay. It's really good.
The best part of St. Louis. It's the best.
All right, then if I was to give you a choice between a plate of T-Ravs or a plate of St. Louis-style ribs, what are you eating? I'm eating the T-Ravs because I don't go for the St. Louis ribs, but what would you go for?
I'm going T-Ravs too. I will die on the T-Ravs hill. T-Ravs and Ted Drew's were all I think that St. Louisians needed to introduce me to get me to stay in the city because those 2 things you just can't beat.
Yeah, I was about to say you sound like a native St. Louisian. Very good. I sometimes joke with him and call him something else.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.